Before y'all say anything, there's not enough time to do laundry in the zombie apocalypse, okay? That's why I'm dressed like this. And I'm in salad, and I saw The Return of the Living Dead. It is directed by Dan O'Bannon, and it stars Clu Gulager and James Karen. This was a movie request by Luke, so thank you, Luke, for forcing me to watch this movie. And I gotta say, I've never seen this movie before. Like, I haven't even seen the franchise or any, Living Dead zombie movies at all, so this was a fun treat to watch. So this movie starts, you get to see this guy. This guy, he's hired at this medical supplier, he's being told how to do medical supplier things. Well, they got the skeletons, they come from India. They have the perfect teeth. How many people do you know who have perfect teeth? Where do they get these perfect teeth skeletons? That's like a fun opening bit. I also like just the showing off of the entire warehouse. It's just like showing it off. It's like one fluid movement, whatever there isn't a cut, and it's just like showing everything off. And I just get to see what it looks like just as much as the new guy does, because he's new as well. They go to the office and they're like, oh, is there anything weird? What's the weirdest thing that has ever occurred? And so the boss man is telling the story about, there was these Walking Dead people, these people who were dead and walking around, and it's just like the movie. They referenced the movie, they referenced the classic movie, and the new guy's like, hey, I don't believe you, show me. So they go down to the basement where there's these barrels, and I love it because these barrels are supplied by the US Army, and so the boss man's like, oh, these barrels aren't going to leak because they're made by the Army. And then they leak, and you get to see a sequence of this guy's face kind of dissolving into some black goo, and they're all knocked unconscious, and I'm like, oh, what did y'all do? What did morbid curiosity do to y'all? Like, this is insane. So they wake back up, they don't see anything happening, but they do feel very sick. And they're like, okay, well, don't know what's going on. I hear a bunch of knocking and a bunch of screaming, and just muffled screaming. What is going on? Turns out the cadaver that was in a fridge that the boss man was showing the new guy. He's like, hey, look at here. There's a guy that was dead there, now he's alive, and he's screaming out for help. And he's just screaming. So they have to call the bigger boss man. The boss man. And it's pretty great because boss man's like pretty much immediately yelling at the boss man. Like, hey, what are you doing? Why did you do with any of this? Why did you show him the thing? This is all your fault, pretty much. And so this is a big old mess that they have to clean. The boss man, it's like, okay, how are we going to deal with this? And so they let the cadaver out of the fridge. And they're like, okay, we're going to chop off its head, because that's what worked in the movie. So they go to chop off the head. The head, that does nothing. That literally does nothing. So they have to tie him down and just be like brainstorming. But they eventually just chop him up into many different pieces. And they take him to the friend's house. I don't even know it's a house, because it's a morgue, but the interior looks very much like a house. And I'm a little bit confused by this, but I've also never been to a morgue, so I'm not exactly sure what regular morgues look like. They take the body to the friend, and the friend has to deal with it. They're like, hey, what's going on? And of course, they don't want to tell anyone about this disastrous situation where a corpse is now alive and won't die. So you have to take it to the cremator. Go to the friend's house. Friend's like, oh, okay, you need to give me a favor. This is one favor. So, they burn the body. And there's some fumes happening. They're fuming it about. And it's pretty great, because you get to see some gas kind of escape the chimney on top. And then, even worse, the rain starts. Starts raining on the cemetery. And I should also mention, forgot to mention the friends, there's like a group of 7 friends that are trying to go after the new kid. The new kid's name is Fred, by the way. So they're going after him, they're trying to pick him up when he gets off of work, which is around 10. And this is all happening within a span of like an evening. So they go to the cemetery, there's a chick who just decides to undress. She gets mad horny at the sight and the thought of being violently dead. Oh boy, she just undresses and stays undressed, and I'm like, okay, you're going to catch a cold, please put some clothes on. I mean, I appreciate the sight, just for your health, put clothes on. And of course, it rains, and they're all trapped out in the cemetery. Well, all this is happening. It's just fun, because she's just now soaking wet, being naked. I'm like, that was probably not a good decision on your part. Why did you do that? Like, come on. You have bigger brains than this. Use all your brain power, more than this one corpse who doesn't even have a head anymore, who got cremated, the rain went to the cemetery, and now all this cemetery is being risen. The entire cemetery is being risen from the dead. And it's a terrifying sight. So they go back to the car after being chased by all these zombies in the cemetery. And it's one of those cars where you can pull over the roof. And just that entire car is soaked. Entirely soaked. Because it's been rained on for like a few minutes. Pouring rain. And so they put the roof over. They're like freaking out, panicking. They don't have a towel for the naked chick. Who knew? They didn't even think it was gonna rain at all because they left the roof off. And the roof just sucks at keeping any water out. They're still leaking. And I'm like, sucks for you, naked chick. You shouldn't have gotten naked in the first place. But I still appreciate your role. Anyway, now back to the guys. The guys who are like stuck in the morgue. They're trying to figure out what they're gonna do with their life. What is going to happen? Well, okay, first of all, they don't even know something's wrong is happening. They think, oh, everything's hunky-dory because they fixed the problem. But then, they notice a bunch of zombies outside. A bunch of screaming and hollering and shouting. And then it's just like, oh no, that's not good. Something bigger has happened. Trying to destroy the bodies just made it worse. So now there's hundreds of zombies outside trying to break into this morgue, trying to break into the medical supply center. You got some of the friends ran over there. They're like, what are you gonna do? What are we gonna do? Ooh. And they go to the basement and they see this slimy zombie. Big old slimy zombie. It's not fun. It looks gross, disgusting, and I love it. And the punk guy, the guy who was wearing the chains, his head gets ate. And also, the first emergence of a zombie was when one of the chicks went over to go get Fred, because Fred was taking way too long. And she goes down there in the basement. She sees him. She runs, and the third step collapses. And I like the third step thing because they established it like 3 times. First, it's watch the third step. It's quite tricky. Second time, the lady steps on the third step. She notices, and then keeps going down. And third time, bam! It collapses through. And I'm like, yes, rule of 3s. Amazing. Good movie. And then, she's kind of running about. The friends come save her, although the guy's dead, and they lock this zombie guy into the basement. Freaking out, obviously, and they split up, which is something you don't want to do in a horror movie, but happens in all horror movies ever. Looking back at the people at the morgue, you got these two sick people. Very sick. You got the ambulance who came. The wambulance, rather. They're coming, they came, they're taking the temperature and the blood pressure of these people, and their temperature is 70, which is room temperature, and they have no pulse. And the rigor mortis is starting to set in. Their muscles are starting to stiffen, and it's... Oh man, they're dead. They're dead. They're zombies. Oh, what's going to happen? It's only a matter of time until they start biting and eating people. But uh-oh, guess what? They're zombies. They're zombies coming, and they're very smart too, because once the ambulance leaves, you got a zombie who ambushes them, a few zombies, and then one of the zombies is like, bring more ambulances. And I'm like, oh, they can speak? Oh no, that's terrifying. Also, another terrifying thing, back down in the basement, the slimy zombie, when the chick put herself in a closet, this zombie simply just put a chain on the doorknob and started pulling. I'm like, oh no, these are really smart zombies. This is the worst kind of zombie. So yeah, they're all trapped. You got a bunch of zombies trying to break in. Everyone's freaking out. Like, what is going on? Please, please save us. Oh boy, this is such a disaster. But, fun thing, the cops come. And those cops get ate when they come to investigate the ambulance. Then, another zombie goes to the cop car, to the whatever it's called, the walkie-talkie, is like, bring more cops. And then like 5 cop cars come. And then all of those cops are just ate. Kablam. I'm like, oh no! These people, they cannot be saved at all. Everyone's freaking out. And then, fun thing, Fred. Fred is like, hey, let me just turn into a zombie real quick. Let me just eat your brains because I love you. I just want to eat your brains, woman. The love of my life. And I'm like, no, this is so terrifying. If this happened to any of my loved ones, I'd just freak out. I don't know what I would do. I'd like cry. I'd cry so much to the point where a zombie would just eat me and then I'd be dead. This is all happening, right? Then, you got some people escape to above the morgue area, but Frank's the boss man. Not the boss man, but the boss man. The one who's like, hey, I want to show off this jug. That guy? Yeah, what a sight. He escapes when they're all trying to like fight Fred. Kind of hit him, keep hitting him. And he goes to the crematorium and he puts himself in the crematorium. And I'm like, that's a good thing, I think. I hope that doesn't, I hope it doesn't cause any more zombies. Because that's how it started in the first place. And he's just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna eat people. I'd rather just be dead. So he kills himself, which is very noble of him. But now we got a bunch of other people. You got people trying to get to the cop cars. Like, okay, let's go to the cop car. I'm trying to bring like 4 people into this cop car. And so, happens is 2 people run out, try to get through the cop car. The cop car is just like covered in bodies and they're trying to escape. They're just having a blast, just running over bodies, hitting people, going in reverse when there's bodies in front of them that they can't go through. And I'm just like, why don't you just run them over? Maybe the cop car doesn't have enough horsepower to run over people, but it's worth a shot. So they go back to the medical supplier, they find some friends there, and then a fun thing happens. They gotta call the army. Calling the army, they're calling the number on the barrel, and the army man, you see him briefly in the beginning, and that he's like very ungrateful because his wife made him lamb chops, and he's like, I already had that for lunch. And he just walks away, and I'm like, oh, you suck. But also, he shows up in the end of the movie, and he has to do some orders. He's like doing some military things. Hey, you got some orders, you gotta do some missiling. So they have a missile. And this is the fun part. Missile 134 miles away. Missile goes to Louisville, Kentucky. This is where we finally figure out where this is all happening. And it blows. They explode the place. Kablow! Problem solved. 4,000 dead, approximately. But then, rain happens. The same cloud that caused all of this madness goes into the rain and goes into the cemetery. It's just the cemetery is anywhere in that area. And more Walking Dead appear. And that's how the movie ends. And I'm like, oh my goodness, they didn't fix their plot problem, like, at all. Like, I'm curious as to see what bigger issues they have to deal with now. It started with one guy, Fred's morbid curiosity. And I say morbid because he dies. He's dead. He turns into a zombie, just wants to eat people. And you know what? I think this is a lesson. Don't be curious about things. So, I really enjoyed this movie. It was a blast. Just the practical effects are awesome. You got the puppets with the zombies. One of the zombies is like completely just decapitated. Well, I guess decapitated applies to the head. Like, torso up. Like, no legs whatsoever. So giving some lore. Why do you eat brains? Because it takes away the pain of being dead. And I'm like, oh, I really like that lore. Like, that's incredibly profound. And it also gives like some reasoning as to why they're doing all this stuff. And I gotta say, I like this movie. I gotta give this movie a solid 8 out of 10. If you like that content, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/ASEPresents for $3 a month. You get some daily vlogs, plus some extended mint salad sauce, and also $20 a month, you get to request a movie review. This movie was requested by Luke, so thank you, Luke. So go check out our Patreon at patreon.com/ASEPresents. Until next time, I'm Mint Salad Saw. I'll see y'all later, my salad croutons and bacon bits.